Please don't hurt me, I can't walk. Begged the female CEO, then the single dad changed everything, please. Don't hurt me. I can't walk, her voice broke in the narrow alley soaked in rain and fear. A shadow loomed, fists clenched as headlights carved terror into the walls. She curled against the pavement, ankle twisted, hope slipping away, until a stranger's voice cut through the storm. Rain drummed against the city like 1,000 broken clocks. Neon lights flickered in puddles, their glow bending across cracked pavement. At the far end of the alley, a woman crawled, her once pristine white suit torn and darkened by water and grit. Isabelle Monroe, CEO of one of the fastest rising tech firms in the country, looked nothing like the powerful figure she had been hours earlier. Her ankle screamed with every movement, twisted at an angle she couldn't bear to see. Tears mixed with the rain on her cheeks as she dragged herself forward, clutching a sleek silver laptop against her chest as if it were life itself. Behind her, heavy footsteps grew closer. They weren't hurried.
They didn't need to be.
Each one echoed with confidence, with ownership. She knew that rhythm. David Langston, her fiancé, her company's CFO, the man the world thought she would marry out of love, but who tonight had revealed something far darker. Please, Isabelle whispered, her voice cracking as she turned onto her back. Please don't hurt me. I can't walk. The man's shadow stretched over her. Headlights from a passing car split the alley in two, painting his silhouette like a monster etched in flame. His hand curled into a fist, and then another sound. A voice. Step away from her. The words were calm but carried weight. Firm. A shield in the storm. Both Isabelle and David turned toward the mouth of the alley. A man stood there, tall, broad-shouldered, with the wear of years carved into his jacket and boots. His hair was damp, his expression unreadable, but his eyes were steady. Beside him, half hidden behind his leg, a little girl clutched a stuffed rabbit, her raincoat yellow against the night. The stranger took one step forward. You don't want to do this. The tension snapped like wire pulled too tight. David froze, caught off guard, not by size or strength, but by the stillness in the man's gaze. No fear, no hesitation, just certainty. The rain slowed. The air itself seemed to hold its breath. David cursed under his breath, his confidence faltering. For a moment, his fist loosened. He studied the stranger again, broad chest rising, steady, jaw set like stone. And those eyes, something in them demanded respect, the way a soldier demands silence without raising his voice. The little girl peeked around her father's leg, her curls plastered to her forehead. Daddy, she whispered, just loud enough to carry. Is she gonna die? The words seemed to pierce through the alley. David shifted back a step, unsettled. This wasn't just a confrontation anymore. It was a scene witnessed by a child. His child. Stay here, Lily, the man said softly to the girl. Then louder, directed at David, walk away. For a long moment, no one moved. The rain tapped against metal bins, a hollow metronome marking the silence. Finally, David spat to the side, his pride bleeding more than his courage. She's not worth it. He turned sharply, retreating into the shadows. His footsteps grew fainter until only the rain remained. Isabelle let out a ragged breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her body shook with adrenaline, pain searing up her ankle. She tried to sit up, clutching her laptop tighter. The man approached slowly, careful not to startle her. He crouched down to her level, his voice lowering into something almost gentle. You're safe now, he said. I've got you. Up close, his presence was even more grounding. Lines of fatigue framed his eyes, but they weren't cruel lines. They were the marks of someone who had carried too much for too long. Isabelle's lips parted, but no sound came. Her chest rose and fell in uneven waves. She had never been speechless before. Not in a boardroom, not in a courtroom, not under the weight of her father's expectations. But here, on a rain-soaked street, with a stranger kneeling beside her, she had no words. The little girl in the yellow raincoat stepped closer, her stuffed rabbit dangling from her hand. She looked at Isabelle curiously, her voice small but certain. Daddy, she's crying like I do when I miss Mommy. The alley fell silent again, but this time, not with fear. With truth. His name was Tyler Ford, 31 years old. To most people, just a man in a worn leather jacket, carrying the weight of rain and responsibility. But to Lily, his 6-year-old daughter, he was the only world left that felt safe. 2 years ago, Tyler's life had been split in half. Before, he had been a firefighter paramedic. the kind of man who ran toward smoke when everyone else ran away. After he was a widower, left with a little girl and a grief that didn't know how to fade. Cancer had taken his wife swiftly, cruelly, and left him with a scar that wasn't visible but cut deeper than any wound from fire. Since then, he had traded his uniform for tools. Washing machines, dryers, broken heaters. He fixed whatever he could to keep food on the table. The money was barely enough. The apartment walls were cracked, the rent always late. But Lily never noticed. Her crayons painted their home with rainbows, stick figures, and stars. She believed color could fix anything, and maybe she was right. That night, Tyler had promised Lily a hot dog after the grocery run. They had cut down the alley to save time when they heard the scream. He hadn't thought, just reacted. It was instinct. That old muscle memory that never left him. Protect, defend, save. Now, as he knelt beside the trembling woman, he recognized something in her eyes. Not just pain, but shame. Like someone who had been strong too long and was breaking under the weight. "Can you stand?" he asked gently. Isabelle shook her head. Her ankle pulsed like fire. She wanted to speak, to explain, but her throat closed. The words felt too heavy. Tyler didn't push. He slid one arm beneath her knees, another behind her back, and lifted. She gasped, startled, clutching her laptop tighter. "You're safe," he repeated, his voice steady as if repetition could rebuild trust. Lily walked beside them, splashing in puddles, clutching her rabbit tight. She kept glancing at the woman, her small brow furrowed, her curiosity endless. Tyler carried Isabelle out of the alley and toward the broken building they called home. The night had shifted. None of them knew it yet, but life would not return to what it was before. Hours earlier, Isabelle Monroe had been standing on the 34th floor of a luxury hotel, glass walls opening to the city skyline. To the world, she was everything, sharp, untouchable, one of the youngest female CEOs in the tech industry. Her company's innovations were splashed across business magazines, her face often paired with words like visionary and fearless. But tonight, none of that mattered. She had said no. No to David Langston, her fiancé. No to his demand that she sign over critical assets in their joint venture. It had started with raised voices, then hands too firm on her wrist. When she saw the glint in his eyes, the promise of violence she had ignored for months, she grabbed the laptop with files he had tried to hide, and she ran. The hotel elevator felt like a coffin. The city streets an unfamiliar jungle. Her stilettos snapped against wet concrete, slowing her down. She tore them off barefoot in the rain. She had never run like that before. Not away from boardrooms, not away from men with power. But tonight she wasn't running as a CEO. She was running as a woman trying to survive. When her ankle twisted and she fell hard against the pavement, panic clawed up her throat. She thought she'd lose everything in that moment, her company, her future, her life. And yet, lying in the stranger's arms minutes later, she realized she might have already lost those things long ago, piece by piece, to the cage she had built for herself. Her laptop pressed against her ribs as Tyler carried her through the rain. The files it held weren't just contracts, they were proof. Proof that David had been siphoning money, betraying shareholders, manipulating her trust. She couldn't let go of it. It was her lifeline. But in that moment, it wasn't numbers or contracts keeping her alive. It was the steady rhythm of a stranger's footsteps, carrying her into the unknown. Tyler's apartment sat on the third floor of a building that had seen better decades. The stairwell smelled of dust and fried onions from the neighbor's kitchen. The wallpaper peeled in strips like skin from a wound. It was a place most CEOs would never step into. But it was the place Isabelle found herself lowered gently onto a worn couch, her body trembling with cold. Lily darted in first, dropping her rabbit on a chair before hopping onto a small rug with her rain boots still on. She looked back at her father, serious as a soldier waiting for orders. Tyler draped a blanket over Isabelle's shoulders, careful not to touch more than necessary. His hands, though rough, moved with the precision of a man who had done this before, calming victims, patching wounds, keeping them anchored to life. "You're safe here," he said simply. "No one's coming through that door without me knowing." Isabelle swallowed hard, staring at the cracked ceiling. She wanted to laugh. Safe? In a room where the floorboards creaked and the heater rattled like it might die at any second? Yet strangely, she did feel safer than she had in weeks. Her ankle pulsed, her hands trembled. She tried to hide it by clutching the laptop closer. But Tyler noticed. He always noticed. "You holding on to that for a reason?" he asked softly. Her throat closed. She gave the smallest nod. He didn't press. Instead, he crouched, pulling a clean towel from a drawer, wrapping it around her shoulders. Lily climbed up onto the couch beside her, eyes big and unafraid. "Daddy, why is she crying like me when I miss Mommy?" The question hit the room like thunder. Isabelle froze. Tyler's face shifted, the ache in his eyes quick but undeniable. He touched Lily's hair gently. "She's had a hard day, honey," he said. "Sometimes grown-ups cry too." Lily nodded, satisfied. She leaned against Isabelle's arm, her tiny warmth both comforting and unbearable. Isabelle blinked hard against the tears threatening again. For the first time in years, she didn't know how to play strong. The storm eased outside, leaving only the drip of water from gutters and the occasional hiss of tires against wet asphalt. Inside, silence wrapped the small apartment, broken only by Lily's quiet humming as she colored at the coffee table. Isabelle sat stiffly on the couch, laptop against her lap, blanket still draped over her shoulders. She felt like an intruder in this world of crayon drawings, worn furniture, and soft routines. She had lived her whole life in places where silence meant strategy. Here, silence meant something else, safety maybe, or family. She didn't know which scared her more. Tyler moved between the kitchen and living room with quiet efficiency. He brewed tea, found a roll of bandages, checked her ankle with hands that were strong yet careful. Isabelle flinched at every touch, not because of pain, but because of how steady he was. She couldn't remember the last time someone had helped her without an agenda. "You're gonna need a doctor," Tyler murmured as he wrapped her ankle. "No hospitals," she said quickly, sharper than she meant. His eyes flicked up, searching her face, but he didn't ask why. He just nodded once and kept working. When the bandage was tight, he leaned back. "All right. Then you stay off it. Rest." She wanted to argue, to reclaim some control, but the words died when she caught sight of Lily. The little girl was drawing again. This time 3 figures. A tall man, a little girl in yellow shoes, and a woman with golden hair but no face. Isabelle's chest tightened. She looked away out the window. The street below was quiet, but her stomach dropped when she saw a dark figure pause at the corner, glancing up. David. She knew his silhouette even from a distance. Her pulse spiked. The laptop dug into her ribs as she hugged it tighter. "Someone's looking for me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Tyler followed her gaze, his jaw tightening. He reached for the window and drew the curtain shut with one steady pull. "Then you're in the right place," he said firmly. "He won't get past me." For the first time that night, Isabelle believed him. The night stretched long. Isabelle drifted in and out of restless sleep on the couch, the sounds of the apartment grounding her in unfamiliar ways. The soft whistle of the kettle, the creak of Tyler's boots as he checked the locks, the murmur of Lily's bedtime story from the other room. When she woke again, the apartment was silent. The glow of a small lamp lit the corner, but the room was empty. Her ankle ached, though less than before. Carefully, she shifted, her eyes landing on her shoes near the door. They weren't wet anymore. The torn sole had been stitched with thick, uneven thread, the kind of handiwork that spoke of patience, not skill. Beside them was a folded towel, still warm, and on top, a note. The handwriting was rough, uneven, but steady. "Your foot's not better yet. You can stay. It's okay." Her throat closed as she read it again. No conditions. No threats. No manipulation. Just kindness. She had lived in a world where everything came with a price, where her father's approval was a currency, where David's love was a contract, where even her own success felt like a leash. But here, in this fragile apartment filled with crayons and patched shoes, she had been given something she didn't know how to accept: care without cost. Her fingers trembled as she pressed the note to her chest. She thought of the alley, of the headlights casting David's shadow like a monster, of her own voice begging, and then she thought of Tyler's voice. Steady, unshaken, commanding not with power but with presence. She wasn't sure yet if she could trust him. But tonight, for the first time in years, she allowed herself to believe she might not have to fight alone anymore. The first morning after felt unreal. Isabelle woke to the faint whistle of a kettle, the clatter of pans in the kitchen. For a brief second, Her brain told her she was back in her penthouse, staff preparing breakfast on schedule. But when she opened her eyes, the truth was undeniable. The couch beneath her was worn, the fabric fraying. The curtains let in slivers of early sunlight, painting stripes across walls covered in children's drawings. A stick-figure family with bright smiles, a rainbow arcing over shaky houses, crayon worlds more vibrant than any skyline she had ever conquered. Tyler appeared, holding a steaming mug. He set it on the chipped coffee table beside her. "Drink this," he said calmly. "It'll help." She wrapped her hands around the mug. The sharp scent of ginger rose in the steam. One sip warmed her throat, steadying the tremble she didn't want to admit was there. "You made this yourself?" she asked, almost surprised. He gave a small shrug. "Old habit. Fires, accidents, you learn small things that help." He crouched down with a roll of bandages. "May I?" Her instinct was to pull back. No one touched her without her permission. Not stylists, not assistants, not David. But something in his voice disarmed her. She nodded. Tyler lifted her foot gently onto his lap. His touch was steady, almost clinical. He peeled away the old bandage, cleaned the swelling, and rewrapped it. Isabelle bit back a hiss of pain but found herself watching his face. The patience there, the quiet discipline, it was unlike any man she had known in her world of polished suits and sharpened smiles. "You've done this before," she murmured. He didn't look up. "Yeah, rescue work. It teaches you to stay calm even when you're falling apart inside." She stared at him, a question forming, but before she could speak, a small voice interrupted. "Daddy," Lily said, tiptoeing in with bed hair like a halo. "Can I show her my picture now?" Isabelle turned, startled, as the little girl clutched a paper behind her back. Lily's bare feet padded across the wooden floor. She stopped in front of Isabelle and, with the seriousness only a child could manage, unfolded the paper. "This is for you," she said, pressing it into Isabelle's hands. Isabelle blinked at the drawing. Bright crayon colors filled the page. A tall man with brown hair, a little girl in yellow shoes, and beside them, a golden-haired woman with an outline for a face, unfinished. Confused, Isabelle glanced up. "Who's this supposed to be?" Lily smiled, pointing proudly. "That's you. I left the space empty for a long time, waiting for someone who belongs." "I think it's supposed to be you now." Her throat closed. A laugh and sob escaped at once. "Sweetheart, why me?" "Because you're here," Lily said simply. "And you look like someone who needs a family." The words hit Isabelle harder than any accusation, any headline, any fight with David. Her hands trembled as she held the paper. No one had ever offered her belonging without conditions. Not her father, not David, not the world that only loved her power. She couldn't stop the tears. They came hot and sudden, streaking down her face. Embarrassed, she tried to hide them with her hand, but Tyler's voice broke the silence. "Everyone deserves to be cared for. Even you." He said it without looking at her, as if it were a fact of nature, not a compliment. And that made it all the more disarming. The room stayed quiet for a long moment, filled only by Lily's humming as she skipped back to her crayons. Isabelle stared at the drawing again, her chest aching in ways she didn't understand. Then, 3 sharp knocks on the apartment door. The sound froze the room. Tyler's eyes narrowed, every muscle in his body shifting into alertness. Isabelle's stomach dropped, her hand clutching the laptop tighter. She knew who it could be. Tyler raised a finger silently, signaling her not to move. He crossed the room in 3 quiet strides. The knocks came again, louder this time. Tyler pressed his eye to the peephole. His jaw tightened. He opened the door only an inch, his body blocking the frame. On the other side stood Mrs. Delgado, the elderly neighbor from down the hall. Her arms were full of grocery bags, her sharp eyes flicking past him like radar. "Tyler Ford," she scolded. "Are you hiding someone in there?" Tyler exhaled, relief muted. "Just a friend passing through." "Friend, huh?" Her gaze darted toward the couch where Isabelle sat frozen, the laptop hugged to her chest. "She looks more like trouble than a friend." Isabelle flushed, shame rising. She wasn't used to being judged like this, not in such raw, ordinary terms. In her world, people whispered behind polished doors. "Here, they just said it to your face." "I'll mind my business," Mrs. Delgado muttered, handing Tyler a loaf of bread from her bag. "But keep the noise down. Some of us actually need our sleep." Tyler nodded, shutting the door gently. Isabelle let out the breath she'd been holding, her entire body trembling. "Relax," he said, crouching in front of her again. "She's harmless. Just curious," but Isabelle shook her head, her voice cracking. "No, he's going to find me, Tyler. He won't stop." Her words carried more than fear, they carried certainty. She had seen the look in David's eyes too many times to mistake it for anything less than obsession. Tyler's hand hovered near hers, not quite touching. "Then you'll stay here until we figure it out. You don't have to run anymore." She wanted to believe him, but the truth pressed heavy against her chest. She had already dragged this man and his little girl into her storm, and storms destroy everything in their path. She turned her face away, whispering almost to herself, "I don't deserve this." Tyler's voice softened.
Deserve what?
"This." She gestured weakly toward the apartment, toward Lily humming on the floor. "Kindness, safety, family, none of it lasts in my world." Tyler's eyes held hers then, steady and unwavering. "Maybe that's because your world isn't the only one." The silence after was thick, heavy but not empty. For the first time, Isabelle wondered if he might be right. That night, sleep refused to come. Isabelle lay on the couch, staring at the ceiling where a water stain spread like a map of somewhere she couldn't name. The apartment was quiet, except for the soft hum of the fridge and Lily's occasional sighs from the bedroom. Her laptop sat on the table beside her. She opened it, the screen casting a pale light across her face. Rows of documents filled the screen. Spreadsheets, wire transfers, contracts, all evidence of David's betrayal. She scrolled, her stomach tightening. This laptop was the only thing keeping her from losing everything. But it was also the weight that might crush her. A floorboard creaked. She looked up to see Tyler leaning against the doorway, his arms folded, his expression unreadable in the dim light. "Couldn't sleep?" he asked. She shook her head. "I don't remember the last time I did." He crossed the room, sat on the edge of the armchair across from her. His presence filled the space without crowding it. "You keep holding on to that thing like it's the last piece of air in the world," he said, nodding toward the laptop. "Because it is," she replied bitterly. "Without it, I lose everything I built." Tyler studied her for a long moment. "And what if you lost it anyway? What would you have left?" The question pierced deeper than she expected. She thought of the empty penthouse, the endless meetings, the cold applause of shareholders. What would she have left? The answer came hollow. Nothing. She dropped her gaze, ashamed of the tears pricking her eyes. "I can't. I don't know how to be anything else." Tyler leaned forward, his voice steady. "You don't have to know yet. You just have to breathe. Let someone else carry the weight for a while." Her chest ached at the words. No one had ever offered to carry anything for her. Not once. She closed the laptop slowly, her hands trembling. For the first time in years, she let the silence hold her instead of filling it with strategies. And in that fragile pause, she realized her armor was beginning to crack. It was just after midnight when the storm finally arrived. Rain hammered the city, wind howling through the narrow alleys. Tyler stood by the window, scanning the street below like he always did when something didn't feel right. His instincts had saved lives before, and tonight they screamed louder than the storm. A black car rolled slowly into view, headlights cutting across the soaked pavement. Tyler's jaw clenched. He didn't recognize the man stepping out, but Isabelle did. Her blood ran cold. "It's him," she whispered, voice breaking. "David." He stood under the flickering streetlight, his expensive coat clinging to him like armor, his eyes sharp with fury. He moved with the arrogance of a man who thought the world bent at his command. And tonight his command was her. Tyler turned sharply. "Go, take Lily, hide." But Isabelle froze, her entire body trembling. She had spent years cowering beneath David's shadow, believing there was no way out. The walls closed in, memories of his grip on her arm, his voice in her ear, the suffocating fear. "Go," Tyler snapped, shaking her out of it. She scrambled toward the bedroom, pulling Lily from her bed. The child stirred, confused, but Isabelle pressed her close. "Shh, baby. It's okay. We just have to stay quiet." The pounding came next. Heavy fists on the door. "Isabelle." David's voice boomed, sharp enough to cut through the storm. "You can't hide from me. Not in this hole. Not anywhere." Tyler stood at the door, every muscle in his body coiled, ready. He didn't open it, not yet. He waited, listening. David's voice dropped lower, more dangerous. "I know you're in there, and if that little girl is the reason you're hesitating, Ford, I suggest you think twice, because I can make people disappear. Tyler's blood ran cold, but his eyes never wavered. He had faced fire, collapsing steel, men with weapons, and now this. The difference was this time someone he cared about was on the line. The door burst open with one brutal kick. Tyler had locked it, but locks meant nothing to a man like David. David stormed inside, dripping rain, his eyes locking onto Isabelle like a predator spotting prey. She clutched Lily tighter, her whole body shielding the child. "Isabelle," David sneered, voice venomous. "Running into the arms of a washed-up hero with nothing? How pathetic. You think he can protect you?" Tyler stepped forward, blocking David's path. His voice was low, steady, the calm before impact. "You take one more step and you'll regret it." David smirked, pulling something from his coat pocket, a knife gleaming under the dull light. "Stay out of this. She's mine." For a moment, fear rooted Isabelle in place, but then Lily's tiny hand squeezed hers, grounding her. Her heart pounded. "No, not anymore. You don't own me," she said, voice cracking but firm. "You never did." David's face twisted with rage. He lunged forward, knife raised. Tyler moved like lightning. Years of training, reflexes honed by disaster, it all came alive. He grabbed David's wrist mid-swing, the force jarring through both men. The knife clattered to the floor. The two locked in a brutal struggle, crashing against furniture, fists landing, grunts echoing through the small apartment. Isabelle shielded Lily, tears blurring her vision as the fight raged. Every instinct told her to run, but for the first time she didn't. She stayed. She refused to leave Tyler alone in the storm. David landed a punch to Tyler's jaw, sending him staggering. He grabbed for the knife again, but before his fingers could close, Isabelle kicked it across the room with her injured leg, pain tearing through her but determination holding her steady. "Not again," she whispered through clenched teeth. "You don't get to win this time." The knife slid under the couch, out of reach. Tyler regained his footing, his fist connecting with David's chest. The man stumbled back, hitting the wall hard. For the first time, David's arrogance cracked. David slumped against the wall, breathing hard. His gaze darted from Tyler's clenched fists to Isabelle's trembling form. "You think this changes anything?" He spat, blood at the corner of his mouth. "She'll never escape me. People like me, we always win." Isabelle stepped forward, legs unsteady but heart blazing. For years, she had let him speak her reality into existence, believing his words were chains. Tonight, the chains broke. "No," she said, voice steady now. "People like you only win when people like me stay silent." "I'm done being silent." She opened the laptop on the table, fingers flying. The files glowed on the screen. Contracts, wire transfers, proof of fraud that could dismantle David's empire. "I kept this for a reason," she continued, her voice shaking but rising. "Not just for me. For every person you crushed under your greed." David's eyes widened, true fear flashing for the first time. He lunged toward her, but Tyler intercepted, slamming him back against the wall. "Don't even try," Tyler growled. Isabelle hit send. The documents launched into the digital ether, copies sent to lawyers, journalists, authorities. "It was done," David roared, thrashing, but Tyler held him firm. His strength, his fury, it was nothing compared to the weight of truth now unleashed. Isabelle stood tall, tears streaming freely, but her voice unwavering. "It's over, David." Police sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder. The storm outside began to ease, rain softening against the windows. David sagged, defeated. His power stripped away not by money or force, but by the courage of a woman who had finally chosen to fight back. Tyler released him only when the pounding of boots filled the hallway. Officers flooded the apartment, taking David into custody. His shouts echoed, but they no longer pierced Isabelle's soul. For the first time in years, she was free. Morning came gently, as if the city itself knew something had changed. The storm clouds cleared, sunlight spilling golden across the wet streets. Isabelle sat on the fire escape, her injured foot propped up, the laptop now just a closed shell beside her. She breathed deeply, the air sharp and new. Tyler joined her, 2 mugs of coffee in hand. He handed her one, then leaned against the railing, watching the street below. Lily played inside, her laughter carrying through the open window. "So," Tyler said, breaking the silence. "What now?" Isabelle looked at him, really looked. For years she had measured her worth in boardrooms and bank accounts. But here, In this cramped apartment, she had found something she didn't know she was starving for. Truth, safety, connection. I don't know, she admitted with a soft smile. But maybe. I don't have to know yet. He nodded, a rare smile tugging at his lips. That's a start. She turned toward the window where Lily peeked out, giggling before darting back inside. Her heart warmed. Belonging. It wasn't bought. It wasn't earned through power. It was given freely by people who chose to stay. For the first time, Isabelle allowed herself to believe she could be part of something like that. The city moved on below them, unaware of the battles fought in the night. But for Isabelle, the war was over. And in its place, something fragile, something beautiful, was beginning. If this story touched your heart, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and ring the bell icon so you never miss the next one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from tonight? Your stories keep this community alive. Thank you for being here.